Hello, I'm Richard Lardner, and today I'll be talking to you about my conservation management plan for the reintroduction of Eastern Timberwolves into Pennsylvania. Now we're going to start off with a little bit of history. In the 1800s, there was a massive movement to kill off the predator populations as they thought it would make things safer. There was also a lot of deforestation in Pennsylvania, which led to massive amounts of depopulation. And in the end, the predator populations were completely eradicated, whereas the prey populations tended to stick around, and it has since recently recovered, especially the white-tailed deer population, which has completely shredded the flora population as they overgraze everything, as they become severely overpopulated. Now, what is the Eastern Timberwolf? It is Canis lupus lycaon. Its females weigh 53 pounds. Its males weigh 67 pounds. And its average lifespan is about 3 to 4 years, with a maximum of 15. It's native to Pennsylvania and the states around us as well. It mainly tends to focus around the Great Lakes region, but it constitutes its entire area. It's also a predator that primarily targets small to medium-sized prey. This most specifically focuses on white-tailed deer. That is their main food source. They also are taxonomically debated. It's argued whether or not they are coyote species, if they're red wolf species, or if they're gray wolf species. Although they're mainly decided now to be their own independent species, which is closely related to the red wolf. The goals and objectives of this plan, well, the main goal is to identify the process required to introduce and maintain a viable population of eastern timber wolves in Pennsylvania while minimizing conflict with the local ecosystem, agriculture, and people. To do this, we will develop an outline, identify threats to the wolf population, identify threats created by the wolf population, and we will collect data on the population of the wolves as well as the local ecosystem and local populations. The reintroduction method will consist of an intended location, which, as you can see here, is north central Pennsylvania, an area often referred to as the Pennsylvania Wilds region, and most specifically within these state forests, this collection of state forests, which consists of Susquehannock, elk, Tigadon, spool, and Musicon state forests. These areas were selected as there is a large range for them to grow into, and it is very isolated. There is very little population in this area, as well as the area being owned by the government, allowing for the integration. The wolf population will be acquired from ongoing populations in Pennsylvania, or in the United States, namely Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which have already growing populations which were recently integrated using similar plans to this one. There will be several pre-release steps on these wolves. Namely, the wolves will be obviously selected by the ongoing plans to avoid affecting them, but they will be checked for age, health, injuries, disease, and as part of that, they will also be vaccinated against every possible disease that is available. They will be transported as quickly and as efficiently as possible to avoid becoming accustomed to humans, as well as avoiding unrepairable injury, as either of these will make it unavailable for the plan and may result in that wolf needing to be euthanized, which is hopefully avoidable. If not, there are organizations that do care for animals in those conditions, which we will try and contact and transport them to, but if not, they will need to be removed. The release strategy we will select areas that have good habitats, although the exact location where they are placed does not really need to be considered deeply, as the wolves are known to travel around 50 miles when they are released, within upwards of 140 miles. This does incite concern about the potential of the wolves migrating to areas they should not be. Therefore, significant resources need to be put into an effort to ensure that the wolves remain both within state forests and away from human populations immediately after release, as well as a continuous effort. There will be a continuous monitoring of the population, making sure that there is a growing population, that they stay away from human areas, that they are healthy and bonding properly. Now, this threat assessment. Threats posed to the wolves include diseases such as rabies, Lyme's disease, canine distemper, canine paravirus, and heartworm. These can be avoided by the aforementioned vaccines, as well as avoiding interactions between this species and other canine species such as domestic pets. There's also competition with local wildlife, which will be discussed on the next part, and there is the potential of a disgruntled local population. This is a significant concern, especially after being seen through other plans which have had issues with the population either indirectly attacking the wolves by when they see them, they may immediately resort to lethal methods, or indirect attacks by trying to exterminate the wolves that are being added into the area as a form of sort of defense. There's also threats posed to the local area by the wolves, such as livestock predation. Mainly, this is less of a concern than gray wolves, as gray wolves tend to hunt larger ungulates, meaning they may hunt cattle, whereas this species tends to not really hunt anything larger than white-tailed deer. They rarely go to the level of even elk. There may be attacks on pets and hobby animals. This could hopefully be averted by informing the public on safe practices to avoid such incidents, and generally trying to avoid situations where this becomes a possibility. There also may be the potential of attacks on people, which is something also that could be resolved through education, as remaining in groups, keeping children close, tends to avoid the possibility of attacks on people. There's also the effects on local ecosystem, which will be discussed in the next slide. Although, as described here, the potential of attacks, compared to ongoing populations in the area, such as black bear, bobcats, coyotes, this species really does not pose a unique or completely unforeseen effect. Most of the ongoing practices that are being done to counteract those species will also be done to counteract this species, meaning that this is not completely a new concern to the local area. As seen in this slide, the habitat assessment, as mentioned, the bobcats and coyotes, the interaction between the wolf population and those species is likely to be less competitive, as the wolves will also eat these species, meaning that instead of competing for a smaller niche now, they will instead replace a considerable population of those species by consuming them and taking up their place in the ecosystem. The black bears, though, are more of a concern, as they will immediately start competing both for territory and for white-tailed deer fawns, which is a food source shared during the winter, which means that there needs to be considerable effort taken to ensure that the integration does not significantly affect the bear population, and that the bear population does not significantly affect the plan. This can obviously be done by avoiding sharing areas, but it may be something that needs to be monitored regardless. There is also white-tailed deer, as previously mentioned. There is an intention to decrease the white-tailed deer population by the integration of the wolf population, but it is obviously important that they do not get over-hunted by the integrated population, and this needs to be constantly monitored to make sure it does not cause significant effect to the ecosystem. There's also the presence of elk, more towards the southern part of the state forests. They pride themselves on the presence of elk. As mentioned, they will hunt elk, but they have less of an incentive to, as it's a larger species. They tend to have difficulty doing so. Beavers do tend to fall into their area of hunting. Although they do prefer the deer, they will hunt beavers, especially when there is less of a deer population available. And the beaver population is integrated across Pennsylvania, but this specific area tends to have low beaver populations, which means that the presence of the wolves may further exacerbate that issue. And although it's not a primary food source, hopefully it does not affect it. It needs to be carefully monitored to make sure that there is not an extermination of the beaver population from that area by the integration. There is also the effect it will have on black cherries and ferns. You may be asking yourself, how is the integration of a wolf population going to affect these species? Well, these species have become extremely prominent in this area due to deer overgrazing. as they are resistant to deer overgrazing, meaning that other species are killed off, they are able to grow more, and by reducing the deer population, they will be met with significantly more competition than they were otherwise, resulting in the potential of these species being reduced by the integration of the wolves into the ecosystem. This is more of a concern for the state forests, as part of their goals is to use the local area to produce sustainable lumber. And specifically, the Susquehanna State Forest is known for having black cherry trees. And an effect on that could be a point of concern for that state forest. Although it could also be argued that the reduction in overpopulation of these species creates a greater biodiversity. It allows for the growth of other trees that they can then use for lumber. And if it is a significant enough concern that species needs to be a main component of the area, efforts can be taken by the state park itself to ensure that these populations stay predominant. There's also the interesting interaction with blackberry. The wolves consume blackberry during their fruiting season, which will obviously provide for the blackberry an opportunity to spread more. It also provides a benefit to the wolves. It's an interesting interaction. There's also the area itself, as shown by the map here, is unglaciated high Allegheny Plateau. There are some small bits of other climates in the area, but that is the majority of it. It consists of rounded hills, steep valleys, and sort of rough terrain, which is kind of beneficial, along with the local biome, which is temperate deciduous forest, preferred by the wolves. It provides their desired climate, as it has forested areas, it has clearings, it has swamps, it has creeks, and rivers. The wolves themselves prefer habitats in areas, in forested areas, near rivers, close to clearings, creeks, and swamps. Now we're going to go over the stakeholders and analyze which ones are there and what their involvement will be. We're going to start off with the involvement of state and federal government. The Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, particularly the Bureau of Forestry, is going to be most involved in this project out of any other stakeholder, as the desired location is going to be on their forests. And therefore, not only is it going to be on their land, their park rangers are going to be the most involved members of this plan, besides individuals managing and maintaining the plan. Meaning that their support is vital to getting this plan working, and it will not be possible if they are unwilling to have this happen. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is also a significant contributor to the plan, as they manage the Endangered Species Act, and through that, the Eastern Timberwolf Recovery Team. These are both groups that ensure that plans like this one can succeed. It instates laws about how endangered species can be treated. It designates the species as threatened. It ensures that there are protections. The Pennsylvania Game Commission also needs to be involved, as there will be significant data exchange with that group as they collect data on game species, which will be vital to ensuring that the plan is succeeding and that all goals are being met. Obviously, the data could inform us of any issues that are evolving in the local ecosystem, stuff like that. Eventually, too, if the species does grow to the point that it is no longer requiring protection, it could eventually become a game species. Therefore, it would fall under their purview, which is a hopeful goal. There's also the consideration of local government and people. The local county governments include McLean, Elk, Potters, Tioga, Lycoming, Clearfield, Clinton, and Cameron. These are important as they are the areas that this is going to be in. They're going to need to approve of this legislation. They're going to likely put this up to local vote, which means that there are limits to what areas may be possible, depending on both the government involvement as well as the local community involvement. That is also segueing into the local communities and people. The local community obviously needs to be supportive. As mentioned previously, if the local community is resistant, it will severely frustrate the plan and cause a lot of difficulty, and could even lead to the plan being completely stopped by killing off of the species. There's also state forest-based NGOs in each of the parks. They do things such as participate with trails, they run sightseeing groups, they encourage tourism to the area, stuff like that. All of these will obviously be serious stakeholders, as they would be affected by the presence of the wolves and be significantly involved in the area. Therefore, it's important to inform them. They also provide a significant lifeline to the local community, as they are part of it. And they potentially down the road, you'll see later on, are a significant contributor to funding and participation in these programs. Talking about participation, the community involvement strategy. There are various forms of involvement, including with the population, including sightseeing the population, particularly from a distance, but the dens and territory could be observed, allowing the local population to be informed, as well as visitors. Posters can be developed that can be placed around the parks, or even in local areas, to inform people about the wolves and areas that they may be in. Brochures can be developed, particularly for mailing to local farms, as this will inform them on important practices involving their livestock and different parts of the program that they may be involved in. There could be website alterations to the local state websites, or state park websites, as they each have their own website and can include a part about the wolves, informing people, notifying people about the locations that they may be at. Maybe if people booked campsites through the local website, it may be able to inform them if the wolves are in that same area to engage in proper practices. There also could be an independent website developed, including the plan, maybe giving more information. Social media accounts could be developed. One of note is for the Yellowstone gray wolves. There is a Facebook group that discusses the wolves, shares photos, stuff like that. And by doing that, we would reduce fear around the wolves, inform people about them, sort of engage the whole community in the event. And through all of this, we would be able to engage people in conservational biology and inform them about different conservation efforts. Maybe get people engaged in other projects, even if they're not engaged in this one, but simply just getting interested. There are also several points of education that will be covered through these projects, including informing people on safe travel practices in areas with wolf populations. As mentioned before, inform people to stay in groups, keep children and pets close, and just generally, if being stopped, avoid travel to heavily populated areas. There are also informing farmers of important techniques to be used to avoid livestock loss. This can be done, as I mentioned, through the brochures. It could be done by having hazing. It could be done through specific equipment, such as flashing lights, motion sensors, cameras, stuff like that. It also could include potential compensation, particularly for farmers if they do lose livestock. By providing compensation, it's very likely that they are going to be less upset with the effect that it's going to be having on their livestock, and less likely to become disgruntled. It's also a good idea to inform people about the plan itself and its goals, and the true level of risk posed by the wolves. A significant point that needs to be expressed to the local population is obviously the risk, but how low it truly is, especially if you're following proper technique. Because in the last 20 years, there's been 2 wolf attacks in America, and across the world, there has been a little over 1 per year, globally. Meaning that the chance of getting attacked by a wolf is extremely low, and if people begin to understand that, it will reduce the cultural fear about these wolves, which is the main component in disgruntled populations of retaliating against them. Another consideration, population management. So, we're going to start off with GPS collars, much like many other plans do, with the original specimens that are going to be integrated into the area. We're going to have GPS collars that track their exact location. This will give us information both on where they are, how many we have available, where they're deciding to den, and it also provides protection against poaching, because not only will it provide information if they are killed, but it will be an obvious indicator that if a poacher were to kill the animal, it would alert people running the program. It will instigate a reaction. So, and especially if they try and take the wolf, the caller will go with them. Therefore, it significantly deters poaching and killing. After that, once the wolves have denned, started reproducing, population counts will be done instead to maintain the number of wolves in the area. These can get costly with higher numbers, so originally they're going to be reassigned as native non-game wildlife after a population of 50 for 4 consecutive years is reached. After that, it can be fully delisted and shifted to a statistical model, as gets expensive, especially with higher numbers. So a statistical model consisting of the original starting population, interactions, found counts through a variety of different programs can be used to reduce the cost. This will be done when there's 150 specimens for at least 2 consecutive years. Then the plan itself will be completed when there's a viable population, which, as defined by the Eastern Timberwolf Recovery Plan, 1 wolf per 50 miles over a consecutive range of 10,000 miles for 5 consecutive years, which will, once that point is reached, the plan itself will be resolved, likely continuing on for as opportunities still available, but likely being mostly shifted off into other organizations which will continue the effort. Research and data collection plan. As previously mentioned, we will be collecting data not only on the wolf species, but other species as well. This will also include data collection through cooperation with the Game Commission, as that will provide information on the related game species and how the wolf population is affecting them. There will also be data collection on the local environment. The data collection on local environment may include pH tests, precipitation tests. It could include temperature year-round tests. It could include soil composition, and it could also include floral counts to ensure the effects, as I mentioned. Although this is a fauna species, it could significantly affect the floral composition of the local area, so it's important to gather data on that. There will also be data collection on the wolf population itself, as mentioned before, and it will also be interpreted on how this interacts with the presence of other populations. There will also be a database formed to collect all of this data in one place and provide it as a resource for other research, tests, plans, etc. The data will likely be retained for the whole process of the beginning, but once a viable population is sustained, the data may be archived and only retained for the last 10 years to reduce costs, especially as the plan achieves its goals. Yeah, as the plan achieves its goals, most of the plans that have gone before tend to lose a lot of funding in the short bursts, and therefore needs to reduce its size. The legal framework, as you can see here, supported by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Mainly, it's protected by the Endangered Species Act. It's also protected by the Recovery Plan for the Eastern Timberwolf through the Endangered Species Act, which indicates punishments for affecting endangered species, killing endangered species, and designates them as such to begin with. The Pennsylvania Wildlife Action Plan, although it's will not be covered in integration, once it's a established point of wildlife in the area, it'll protect down the road, ensuring that the population sustains. And just long-term protection once the population has been established. The Pennsylvania secondary punishment laws include a lot of punishments on top of the punishments established by the Endangered Species Act, meaning that criminals who attempt to poach or otherwise disrupt the endangered species will be not only hit by punishments and fines by the Endangered Species Act, but also by laws within Pennsylvania, providing further deterrent to causing difficulty. The budget and funding strategy. Based on similar plans and expected requirements, it's likely this plan will require $3 million. This will mainly be collected through organizations such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which has been known to support plans like this. Also, a significant amount of funding will likely come from individuals and NGOs, those that are interested in the plan, but also NGOs that may benefit from the plan, or corporations such as tourism groups and local businesses that may benefit from tourism. There will also potentially be funding from the recovery plan for the Eastern Timberwolf. Although this plan is likely to not fit under the purview of that plan, if there is a significant connection there that they consider important to support, they may provide funding. In conclusion, there are a variety of benefits to the plan. It provides habitat for an endangered species. It assists in controlling an overgrown population. It improves the diversity of the local ecosystem. It provides a point of interest for the state and draws in tourism for the local area. Oh, here are my citations. And any questions?